I'm Max Sterling, welcome to LarpMix. A store close to me recently had a phenomenal sale on these Nerf Hammershots, so I picked up a whole bunch of them. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how to mod and make one of these look much better. Now, the Nerf Hammershot is a go-to for most dystopian games, a lot of future set games, and even some Western style games. And the reason is because it's a single shot, you know, it holds a couple of darts, and it fits most games' rules when it comes to the firing mechanism and so forth. Plus, it looks pretty cool, and it's really sort of period for most settings. So, one thing that bothers me is that most people just paint them, and they all kind of look approximately the same. I want to really take this thing to the next level. Now, I wish I had a 3D printer so I could print parts or I could buy some parts, but buying the parts online is pretty expensive. And I can't blame people if they don't want to buy them to add on to this blaster. However, I'm going to show you some things you can do that are not that complicated, and you can make this blaster look phenomenal. And then also we're going to do some internal mods, and we'll do all the external stuff. So this is going to be a two-part video. The first video we're going to do all of the physical sort of modding to it, and then in the second video we're going to do all of the external sort of genre of the blaster, and then we'll take a look at what the final thing looks like. Now, when I bought these, I made sure I tested all of them and made sure that they all sounded like they were really putting out some air, because sometimes you'll find ones that they just don't sound as powerful, and this one sounds really powerful. I don't know if you can hear it, but listen to the air. So you may not be able to pick that up, but there's actually a pretty good amount of air I hear blowing through there, and we're going to go ahead and tighten that up so that most of that air is directed forward. Now, if your game doesn't allow internal modification like that, then, you know, that's up to you if you still want to do it or not. But I would say just be mindful, because if they do decide to check or something, or if someone calls you out on it, you know, you're going to get in trouble. So if the internal stuff isn't permitted at your game, I would say skip that part, but still watch this video, because we're going to do some external stuff too that takes this gun to the next level and will put you far apart from any other people at your game. Whether you're elitist or not, having an awesome looking blaster is very important, because sometimes it's how you show it, not how you use it, that can get you out of a rough situation. So let's go ahead and make this thing look awesome, and I'll go ahead and join you over in the shop. So here we are in the workshop. Let's go ahead and open this up for starters. Okay, so here's our blaster, and it comes with a couple of these darts in here also. So we'll pull them out and just set them aside, because we'll be needing those for later. These are the zombie strike ones. So we'll hold on to those, and then packaging, whatever. So here we are. Now, these ones unfortunately have a lot of writing on, which we'll have to sand off later, but like I said, we're going to focus on some other items now. We're going to do all the standard LarpMix channel things on here to make this look phenomenal, but I'm going to show you a few things maybe you haven't seen and try to get this looking way better than stock. So let's go ahead and get started. We're just going to go ahead and pull it apart first by removing these couple of screws that are on here, and that's pretty straightforward. Now, not on all blasters, but on this blaster, all the screws are the same size or very close to the same size. So I would say don't worry about keeping them separate. A lot of blasters you pull apart, there are different size screws, so you really got to pay attention. But on this one, they're all the same size, so have at it. Now we have it open here, so we see how the mechanism and everything works. There's an air chamber, you got your rotating barrel assembly, you got this part here. Now this slides down through, so if you're going to adjust the spring, you got to make sure that it's something that's hollow, so we'll have to keep that in mind whenever we mess with it. But, you know, pretty straightforward. Now, if you're painting if you really want to take the time and try to break this stuff apart, I've done it before, but it's glued together, so it does come apart, but there's a pretty high risk you're going to break something. But if you do want to break it down into pieces for painting, you can do that, but just be prepared to be patient and take your time so you don't break pieces. But for now, let's go ahead and we'll pull some of this stuff out here so we don't need this. Even those screws seem to be the same size as the ones on the outside, so you can probably still mix and match them. This whole assembly is very forgiving compared to some other Nerf blasters. There's a little spring on the back, don't lose that. But really this is one solid piece, so don't unscrew any of this stuff unless you have to for some reason. I'm going to leave it all intact so I don't mess anything up. But then there's your two halves of the shell, so this would be an ideal time to paint this stuff because you can even paint it on the inside and not really mess anything up. So, you know, good deal. On here you got a nice foam seal. You can see it, there's already foam on the inside. It looks like on some of these newer blasters, maybe the company's starting to take a little bit of a hint from a lot of the modding community, so that's actually interesting to me. But like I said, I also haven't pulled one apart in a while, so who knows. They've given us these little tabs, which makes it nice and easy to pop stuff off. So once you crack this open, then you're going to have a spring and your air restrictor, and we're going to go ahead and just remove those. So we'll just set those aside for now in case we decide to put them back in later or something. But now we just have this, and you can cut this middle part out here if you choose to. That's entirely up to you. Just use an X-Acto knife or a razor blade. You know, just be safe and careful when you're cutting it. And there you have it. So air restrictor removed. Now, one other thing you may want to do while you're in here is go ahead and take this and put a little bit of white lithium grease on it, because what it'll do is it'll maybe make a little bit better seal whenever it's coming up to these here. And the better seal you get here, the more air is going to transfer into the chamber. Now, this chamber, of course, also has the pegs in. Now, if you're planning on shooting anything other than the standard Nerf darts, then you're going to want to remove these. I'm probably going to remove them anyhow, just to allow more air to flow through there. And we're just going to cut them out too. And we'll just sort of fast forward through that process. Now, if you have a file or something, you might want to stick it down in there and clean this up a little bit better, or use some sandpaper to clean it up. But really, I mean, pretty much that's it. And if you left enough on there, then you won't really have to worry about these pushing through too much. I mean, if you push excessively hard, they'll go through, but I don't see any reason to push those in there that hard. So that should take care of this portion for you. Now, if we want to remove this air chamber, we need to take out this last screw. And just be careful when you're popping this open. There's not really a whole lot of spring stuff going on in here, but you still want to be mindful. And then, of course, we'll pull this. Don't lose this spring. Very important. And then this just slides up and out. Okay? Don't let this get dirty. And then we have our air chamber here, and we're going to leave that alone. Don't lose this assembly here, so just try to keep that in one piece. Also, don't lose this little pin that was holding that on there either. Okay? So just stick that someplace and don't lose it. Now for this portion, we're going to add a little extra on here to make the spring compress harder, and we're going to pull this off, put some tape underneath, and put some white grease on there to make it have a better seal. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. And like I said, this is the pretty standard Nerf blaster stuff. If you've modded one before, this is all pretty standard stuff, except you can't use pennies on this one because of the way this is set up. You got to be a little bit more creative, and other than that, it's all basically the same old stuff that you've probably done before. If you didn't catch that, what I did was I folded this in quarters lengthwise. This is always a little bit of trial and error, but you know, put some on there, and then if it's too much or too little, try again. But I'm gonna hope that that was the right amount. All right, and we go ahead and test that out here. Yeah, that's a lot tighter, so we're gonna keep that just like that. And remember when I said not to lose all these pieces? Well, guess what? Don't lose all these pieces. All right, and then we just gotta get the white lithium grease and put it in there. Now this is an edge protector for children. Now I realize that not everyone may have something like this, and if you do, it certainly may not be the same as this one, but you gotta work with what you got out here in the wasteland. So this is what I'm using. Now, you can use a small piece of pipe, you could 3D print something, you could buy something online if you choose to, because they certainly sell the pieces that you can do this with. However, I have this, so it's what I'm gonna use. And then how I'm gonna do it is just cut a little T shape in the center of it that is approximately the same size as this, and then slide it right on top. So, and then I can trim the edges to make sure it fits in there correctly. So what we did here was we pulled out this center post, which you may have done on a Maverick or something. I went and just popped this off anyway just for fun, but it's going to go back on here. And we have, of course, all these pieces laying around that came off of there as well. Now, you got to be super careful because you can mangle this and break it. I actually broke mine. If you broke your blaster, I mean, don't fear too much because it can be fixed. It's just going to be a little bit of a hassle. What I'm going to do is put this in a vise, heat it up a little bit, and hammer it straight down and fix it up. And this is already pretty much probably the length we're going to want it to be. This is obviously an advanced step, so don't do this unless you're comfortable and also comfortable with breaking your blaster. Now, if you happen to break this little metal thing like I did, don't worry. You can always run out to the store and buy one of these. This is a 6/32 by 1 foot screw piece, and then you can also buy washer, and I'm choosing to go with an acorn nut as well. And then you're just going to cut this to size to replace this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that now and just figure out how long this needed to be. So you'll have to thread it through because it's not going to just slide like the other one, but that's okay because that's going to make it stay in place better as well. This is one part where power tools may come in handy. So, and if you broke it, then this is where we're at right now. So we got this back together. We screwed this the whole way through all the components so that everything still works. And you have this big extra piece. Now this can just get hacksawed off or ground off or cut off with clippers, whatever you got to do. And then what we're going to do is put this acorn nut on the outside here. And if I've lost you, that's good. Stay tuned because the next step is pretty awesome. All right, all nice and back together, looking good. Now the next step. Oh, this design here with this arm is the part that really bothers me the most. So we're going to cut it off. Now you have to make a decision whether you want to cut it right here or if you want to bring it all the way back. Now the reason why we have to decide on those two spots is because that's where two of our screws are going. Now we don't have to worry about these ones because they're being completely deleted, but we need to decide whether we want to keep this little sort of like energy cell down here, or if we want to lose it and just come all the way back here. For now, I'm going to cut it right at the energy cell, because to get into here, you almost need a bandsaw or some sort of power saw, because if you start cutting into there with a hacksaw, it's going to be very difficult. Now, that being said, of course, you can do it, but I would leave that. So we're going to cut it right here, and we're just going to use our trusty hacksaw to do it. And we're just going to cut right through it, right at the line, make it nice and simple. Okay, so now we have this all put back together. We're going to go ahead and put the entire blaster back together. Just a few notes, like I said. Try not to break this little metal thing that goes in here, but if not, you can certainly replace it. And also, do not break this right here when you're pulling it apart, because if you do, then your blaster's not going to work. So let's go ahead and just reassemble everything the same way we pulled it apart. And we just put the screws back in, and then you can start to see what we're working with. I may still yet remove this, but you'll have to follow along in part 2 to see how everything comes together. But that's pretty much what we're looking at so far. So already a much better looking blaster. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Definitely like the video, and of course comment below, especially if you have any suggestions or comments on how this could have gone better or smoother, or anything you think that we're forgetting to do here to make this an awesome hammer shot. Of course, the warning here is do not attempt this unless you're prepared to lose the blaster. I made a few errors and broke a few things, and I had to replace them, which I did not want to have to do. However, it may have been a good teaching tool, because then I was able to show you how to fix it in case you run into the same problems. But hopefully yours goes a lot smoother, but you should always be prepared to lose the blaster if you're doing modding, because there's always a chance you may break something or lose something. So just keep that in mind. That's the warning. Be sure to catch us in part 2, where we do all the external mods and we really get this thing looking fantastic, and then go out and give it a test. Until next time, adventure on.